ready for change. Here's your part in God's plan. Let me ask you a question today, and I want you to be honest with yourself. Are you ready for change, or are you just tired of being uncomfortable? Because those two things are not the same. A lot of people want results, but they don't want responsibility. They want a new season, but they keep clinging to old habits. They want God to move, but they don't want to move themselves. Here's the truth. God is a God of change, but he partners with willing people. You see, change is not something to fear. Change is proof that God is not finished with you yet. If God wanted to leave you where you are, he wouldn't keep nudging your heart. That restlessness you feel, that inner stirring, that holy dissatisfaction, that's not confusion, that's calling. Some of you have been praying, God, change my situation. And God is saying, I'm trying to change you. Because when you change, your situation will follow. We love to quote scriptures about God opening doors, but we forget something very important. Most doors don't open automatically. You have to walk up and turn the handle. And yes, it might be scary. Yes, you might feel unqualified. Yes, you might think, what if I fail? But let me tell you something freeing today. God never asked you to be perfect. He asked you to be willing. Obedience is not about having all the answers. It's about trusting the one who does. Some of you are waiting for clarity before you obey, but often clarity comes after obedience. God says, take the step and I'll show you the rest. Stop disqualifying yourself. Stop saying, I'm too broken, too late, too scared, too ordinary. God has always used ordinary people who said an extraordinary yes. Your part in God's plan is not to figure everything out. Your part is to trust him enough to move when he says move. Small steps of faith lead to big transformations. Small obedience unlocks great purpose. And listen, change doesn't mean it will be easy, but it will be worth it. So today I challenge you. Don't just pray for change, participate in it. Don't just hear God's voice, respond to it. Don't just believe God has a plan, step into it. Because when you say yes to God, he takes care of the how. And the best part, the change God is calling you to today is preparing you for blessings you're not ready for yet, but you will be. So ask yourself again, are you ready for change? If the answer is yes, then take your part. God is already working. Now it's your move. Amen. Change often feels uncomfortable, and sometimes we automatically assume that if something needs to change in our lives, we must have done something wrong. We start thinking, what did I mess up? Why am I here again? But that mindset can quietly steal our peace and distort how we see God. The truth is, when God calls you to change, it is not a punishment for failure. It is an invitation into growth. God is not standing over you with disappointment. He is standing ahead of you with purpose. Think about how God works. He is always moving people forward, stretching them beyond where they are into where they are meant to be. If he left you exactly as you are year after year, that wouldn't be love, that would be neglect. Love grows, love matures, and love prepares. When God puts his finger on an area of your life and says, this needs to change, it's because he sees something ahead that requires a stronger, wiser, more grounded version of you. Sometimes we confuse conviction with condemnation. Conviction is gentle but firm. It pulls you upward. Condemnation pushes you down and tells you you're not good enough. God never motivates through shame. He motivates through vision. He shows you what could be, not just what is. Change becomes necessary when the next season demands something different from you. New thinking, new habits, deeper trust, stronger character. Preparation often looks like disruption. God may allow you to feel uncomfortable where you are so you won't settle for less than what he has planned. The stretching, the pruning, the refining, none of it feels good in the moment, but it is always purposeful. Before promotion comes preparation, and before expansion comes adjustment. God knows what you are about to walk into, even when you don't, and he lovingly prepares you in advance. If you were failing, God would let you drift. But because he cares, he corrects. Because he has more for you, he invites you to rise. Change is not evidence that you are behind. It is proof that God is actively involved in your life. He sees potential you haven't stepped into yet, strength you haven't used yet, and blessings you aren't ready to carry yet. So when change shows up, don't see it as rejection. See it as God saying, I trust you with more and I'm getting you ready for it. You are not stuck because God is slow, distant, or unsure of what to do next. Many times the delay we feel is not on God's side, it's in our response. We pray, we hope, we wait, but we don't always move. And yet God has already spoken, already opened a door, already placed an opportunity within reach. Waiting on God does not mean inactivity, it means alignment. When God gives direction, even a small one, our responsibility is to act on it. Faith is not passive, it is responsive. There are moments when God is saying, I've done my part, now trust me enough to do yours. It can feel safer to wait than to risk obedience. Waiting feels spiritual, but sometimes it's just fear dressed up as patience. We want guarantees before we step out, reassurance before we obey, confirmation after confirmation. But faith doesn't work that way. Faith moves forward even when everything isn't clear. God often reveals the next step only after we take the first one. Many people are asking God to change their circumstances while He is asking them to change their choices. He is waiting for forgiveness to replace bitterness, discipline to replace excuses, courage to replace comfort. Breakthrough is often attached to a decision we keep postponing. God is not withholding answers, He is watching for obedience. When we act on what we already know, God responds with what we need to know next. It's important to understand that God honors movement. When you take steps in faith, even imperfect ones, heaven responds. Action shows trust. Action says, God, I believe you enough to move forward even if I'm nervous. God is not waiting for you to feel ready. He is waiting for you to be willing. The moment you step out, grace meets you there, strength rises, and direction becomes clearer as you go. Obedience is the bridge between promise and fulfillment. Good intentions do not produce transformation. Obedient actions do. You can believe all the right things and still stay stuck if you don't act on them. Obedience is not about understanding everything God is doing. It's about trusting who He is. When God speaks and you respond, something shifts in the spiritual atmosphere. Doors begin to open, resistance weakens, and momentum builds. Obedience positions you where God can work freely in your life. God's plan is activated not by knowledge, but by surrender. Every act of obedience, especially the uncomfortable ones, releases God's power in ways comfort never can. Obedience requires humility, courage, and trust, but it always produces growth. You may not see immediate results, but obedience is never wasted. Each obedient step aligns you more closely with God's will and prepares you for what He has already prepared for you. God often chooses to work through what looks small, simple, and unimpressive. We tend to think purpose has to be loud, dramatic, or instantly visible. But God delights in starting with what feels ordinary. A quiet decision, a simple act of obedience, a small step taken in faith can carry more power than we realize. Many people overlook these moments because they seem insignificant, yet these are often the very places where God begins His greatest work. A small yes matters because it represents trust. When you say yes to God in the little things, you are telling Him that He can rely on your heart. God is not looking for people who can handle everything at once. He is looking for people who will be faithful with what is right in front of them. Faithfulness in small things builds spiritual strength, character, and confidence. It prepares you to carry more without being crushed by it. We sometimes wait for a big opportunity before we commit fully, but God usually tests willingness before He releases responsibility. The willingness to forgive, to show up consistently, to speak truth kindly, to serve without recognition, these choices shape who you become. They stretch your faith quietly and steadily. What feels small today is often laying the foundation for something much larger tomorrow. God multiplies what we place in His hands, but He doesn't multiply what we withhold. When you offer Him your time, your obedience, your trust, even your fear, He knows how to increase it. One step forward can change the direction of your life. One obedient decision can set events in motion that affect far more than you can see right now. God works through process, not shortcuts, and small beginnings are part of that process. Never underestimate the power of consistency. A small yes repeated daily becomes a lifestyle of obedience. Over time, those choices reshape your thinking, strengthen your faith, and align you with God's purposes. You may not feel powerful when you say yes, but heaven responds to it. God sees what others overlook, and He honors faith that moves, even when it trembles. What starts as a small act of obedience can grow into a testimony of God's faithfulness and your transformation. Change will almost always require you to let go of something familiar, and that is where many people struggle. We like comfort, routine, and predictability, even when those things are limiting us. God's plan often calls us out of what feels safe and into what builds faith. That doesn't mean God is trying to make life harder. It means He is trying to make you stronger. Growth demands movement, and movement demands trust. Many people want transformation without transition, but transition is where faith is formed. It's the in-between season where old ways no longer work and new ways haven't fully taken shape yet. That space can feel awkward, uncertain, and uncomfortable. But it is also where God does some of his deepest work in you. He uses that season to adjust your mindset, refine your character, and teach you to rely on him rather than your own understanding. Change exposes what we lean on. When familiar supports are removed, we discover where our confidence truly comes from. God is not trying to strip you of joy or security. He is teaching you to find those things in him instead of circumstances. Comfort zones may feel peaceful, but they rarely produce growth. Faith grows when you step into situations where you have to trust God moment by moment. Resistance to change often comes from fear of loss, loss of control, loss of identity, loss of certainty. But God never asked you to release something without intending to replace it with something better. What you let go of makes room for what he wants to give. Sometimes the very thing you are afraid to release is the thing holding you back from the next level of freedom, peace, or purpose. Change also requires patience with yourself. You will not adjust perfectly or instantly. God works through progress, not perfection. He is patient as you learn, stretch, and sometimes stumble. What matters is that you keep moving forward instead of retreating. Every step of obedience, no matter how small, trains your heart to trust God more deeply. God's plan unfolds one layer at a time. He rarely shows the full picture because faith grows best when it is exercised. Change is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming who God already designed you to be. As you respond to his leading, you begin to see that what once felt frightening becomes familiar. What once felt difficult becomes manageable. And what once felt impossible becomes part of your testimony.